Hey everybody, it's Bailey, Director of Innovation at Intelligentsia. I want to go over a couple pour-over recipes that I think can be helpful for you. They are fairly accessible. They are ratio based, and so they are somewhat scalable. These are 15-gram doses, so we'll work from there, but you can adapt these for 12 or 20 or whatever. I do think once you get much above 20, 25 grams, this does start to not work as well, but the bed depth of the smaller doses under 20 seems to work really nicely. So these are a 1:17 ratio, and then the concept behind the recipe is that it's a double bloom followed by declining pours. So we basically take these 17 parts and then allocate them across the pours. So in our first one, we'll do 5 pours. So the first pour is going to be 3 times the weight of the dose to really ensure saturating all of the ground coffee. Then after 30 seconds, we'll do another 2 times the weight of the dose, so 2 more parts of that 17. And that's going to help to swap out the interstitial coffee and make the extraction more efficient and effective. And then at a minute, we'll move into the 3 ongoing pours that are really starting to do the bulk of the rest of the extraction. Those will be 6 parts, and then 4 parts, and then 2 parts. So you can see how those decline over the rest of the brew. And we'll space those out about 40-45 seconds, depending on how the slurry is drawing down. Usually we want slurry height to be about 1 centimeter above the bed before the next pour, 5 to 10 millimeters. On the other one, it's basically a lower extraction version of that recipe. So we'll do the same thing, the double bloom, 3 parts and then 2 parts. And then at a minute, we'll just do 2 more parts. So rather than 6, 4, 2, we'll actually do 8 and then 4. So 1 big pour, 8 parts, and then wait a little while, let that draw down, and then the rest of the water, 4 parts. So still declining pour. So let's get these started and see how these go. So down the center, and then around in a circle, and then back to the center. And if you actually take the time to dig apart your bloom after, say, about 15 seconds here and see what is actually saturated and what's dry, almost all the time, if your grind is actually coarse enough and you're pouring 3 times the weight of the dose, you're going to have full saturation on the bed. There's no need to intervene and do more work. So from 45, we'll go up to 75. As far as pour style goes, I'm going to be fairly quick and aggressive with these. I'll take the Stag and pour pretty close to max flow. Some other kettles like a Bonavita are a little faster flow, and so you might back off a little bit, but in general it's pretty quick. And part of that is so as to get the total brew time down a little bit. The faster you pour, the faster your coffee will actually draw down. But also I kind of wanted to eliminate as much of the skill necessary for pouring. So pouring at a more controlled flow rate, 6 to 8 mils per second, is a little bit more difficult to actually do. It takes a lot more practice, and I think kind of yeeting the kettle is a little bit more accessible. So that's the idea behind the fast flow rate. All right, we're at minute 40. This is drawing down pretty well. I'm gonna go at minute 45, and this is gonna go from 165 to 225. And I'm not really being super precise about how I'm landing on these pause weights, 165, 225. If I'm a few grams under or over, I'm not gonna like little bits of water to get to the exact mark. I'm just gonna stop and kind of maintain that fast flow. So don't fret if you're overshooting by, I don't know, 5, 10 mils even. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Alrighty, I'm gonna go here at 230. Up to 255. This last one I will often be a little bit more precise. All right, over here we'll do basically the same thing. All right, let that go while this draws down. All right, a 30 here, go up to that 75, push out that first pour. And you can see here using a V60 and a Kalita Wave, I'm not really worried about the brewer. I think the brewer is another lever to pull, so I try not to have a recipe for a dripper. I try to have one recipe that I'll use on any dripper and then use the dripper to modulate the profile. So typically if I use the same recipe on a Kalita Wave or a V60, I'm actually gonna get a higher extraction yield with the exact same recipe on a Kalita Wave than I would on the V60. And I'll take that into consideration when I'm picking the dripper. I'm also going to typically get what tastes a little bit more like an even extraction from a flatbed dripper versus the conical. And so again, I'll consider that as well, that if I'm looking for a little bit more of an extraction gradient, then I'll reach for the conical. If I'm looking for a little bit more focused extraction, then I'll reach for the flatbed. So again, don't worry about what dripper it is, explore, swap things out, have fun with it. All right, so because this pours a little bit bigger at 8 parts, I typically will wait a little bit longer on this one. So I'm already at 1:50 here. I'm probably gonna go till 2 minutes, and then I'll add those other 4 parts from 195 up to 255. And that's basically these. So we'll let these finish drawing down. This one's already done, and we'll taste these and compare. All right, so as we taste these, I wanna try to avoid talking much about the coffee itself and more try to talk about what's different about the 2 cups. It is still a little bit apples and oranges because it did use 2 different drippers, but again, like I don't wanna fixate on what the dripper is like and just kind of encourage exploration. Yeah, so the big difference to me is that the acidity and sweetness is a little bit softer, more connected, and there's like this smooth transition throughout. This one, the acidity is a little bit more prominent. It's a little bit more lively, a little bit less on the sweet side. So I think that, you know, some people like this in their coffee, some people like this in their coffee, and I think this is a good way to tweak the coffee to make it good for you. So I think that if you're looking for a little bit more sweetness, you might try the 5 pour. If you're looking for a little bit more focus on the acidity and expression there, you might lean towards the 4 pour. These are both fairly high extraction yield recipes, especially the 5 pour. Of course, you can just grind coarser to modulate that, which I think a lot of people will also enjoy, but this is an easy way to take a step back on the extraction and tweak that acidity to sweetness ratio and change up the flavors in your cup. So I hope you try this, hope you enjoy it. Thanks.